The following message is transmitted at the request of
Valkyrie.
It's happening. I could have saved you. I tried to warn you, but you looked away. You asked for this. You've made your bed, now lie on it. Why didn't you listen? You cannot stop it. It hasn't even begun. It's too late. I told you so. Why did you believe them? Don't call it a grave. It's the future you chose. We are trapped in the belly of this horrible machine, and the machine is bleeding to death. It didn't have to end like this. You could have prevented this. You only had to listen. It's happening. It's over.
So Battle Nations just died, and you know what? I don't really care. Okay, so I guess I actually have to do a proper video on this, because this game definitely deserves more than just that. God, where do I start? I mean, I'm definitely going to talk about why I think this game ended up how it did, but I don't really know. I mean, I can't pretend that I don't really owe anything to this game, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for this game. But, I mean, I don't know, I guess it's just, I have this kind of love-hate relationship with pretty much all the free-to-play games. I mean, actually I haven't really played any of them lately, to be honest. I mean, I can't say I've actually been playing War Thunder a lot recently, because I actually haven't. And I'm actually gonna do another video on that in a bit, because there's a lot of news revolving that lately. But this is gonna be primarily a Battle Nations video. So so when I grew up, I've mainly been like whenever I play games, I always like to. I'm a completionist. I always like to beat all the games to 100%. And playing like really all these free to play games, it really broke that habit for me because I mean the way these things work is they're always being constantly updated, so you'll never really ever get finished with them. Especially the grindier ones, like this game, of course, and also you got your War Thunders, your World of Tanks, your Armored Warfares, and they're just constantly adding new stuff. And I mean, I want to, but I don't really have the time or the patience to get everything all up to 100%. And this game was really the first one that made me realize that, which is kind of why I hate it, but but that also gets on to the next point. So I'm not surprised this game's gonna die very soon. It's gonna die in September, which is like pretty much almost exactly a month from now. In terms of the day, I know September comes after August, guys. I'm not. Anyway, so you could already tell this game was on life support at the beginning of this year, because they actually haven't really done anything since. I'm pretty sure there's only been like there's either been none or one update this year. And I don't even remember what exactly they did. If I recall, it was just like some stupid crap. Like actually no, I think that now that I think of it, I'm pretty sure there wasn't even a single update this year. They just had a single boss strike this year. But I mean, for the past 2 years, you could already tell this game was on life support. Because basically, for the entirety of, I'd say, the second half of last year, they've not done nothing but release new premium units. So for years now, I've been saying over and over again why this game's gonna die, pretty much, and it has to do with the constant releasing of premium units, and that's the way pretty much any free-to-play game's gonna die, because when you do nothing but release units that your player base has to pay for, it basically establishes that your revenue is completely dependent on milking your loyal player base rather than being able to attract new players who will spend some of their money to buy pretty much all your existing stuff. That's for sale with premium currency. And by then you're pretty much screwed unless you can find a way to get more new players. Because at some point, those loyal players that you still have will eventually quit, pretty much like me, though I didn't really buy their stuff because, you know. And you can really say that about any free-to-play game. And I hate to admit it, but you're kind of seeing the same thing happen with War Thunder. I mean, I'm not really supposed to be talking about it in this video, but I mean, for the past few updates, basically half of the units they've been releasing were premium. And, well, I see where the wind's blowing, guys. I hate to admit it. Especially what they did with the whole, what they plan to do with the naval units. It'd have to be really, really fun for them to not be screwed at this point. I mean, a lot of you are probably gonna say, but Valkyrie, they need to make money somehow. And I'm not saying that they should completely remove anything that has to do with premium currency. Because, again, they do need to make money somehow. But look at Fallout Shelter, for example. Completely free to play. There's nothing that you can unlock by paying with money that you can't already be able to get just by playing the game. Now, granted, Fallout Shelter might be completely funded by Bethesda's shilling of crappy DLCs, but the way it looks right now, it seems like it's gonna be here for quite some time. But back to the main point. I guess for Battle Nations, there's really 4 phases that they went through in terms of game prosperity. And strangely enough, it actually lines up with the way they organize their updates. Because the way they did it, there you have your update 1 point whatever, 2 point whatever, 3 point, 4 point, and well, they never got to a 5.0. And so basically, your patch 1.0 was your, well, it was the beginning. It was basically you had nowhere to go but up at that point. That's when they added, well, that's when they added a bunch of missions that were actually fun back then. They added a bunch of units. I don't really remember if they added that many new mechanics, but that was one of the best moments in the entire lifespan of the game. That was when you got to fight the Raiders, and presumably at that time, everyone thought that that was going to be the end of the Raiders, and we'd move on to something else. But it apparently wasn't. Well, I mean, it kind of was, but it mainly wasn't. And then your 2.0 was the Golden Age. That was when they started adding. They really started innovating then. They added a whole new storyline with the Silver Wolves. They added a bunch of new story missions, which is probably why I call it the Golden Age, because that was probably the time I had the most fun playing this game. They added a bunch of new mechanics like that, which, give or take, were mostly for the good. They added the experience system for the units, and I'm gonna add on to that later, because, well, actually I'll add on to it now. Um, the thing with the SP system, or was it SP or was it X? I don't remember. I haven't played this game in like 2 years now. But anyway, the thing with this whole unit experience system, when it was still just up to 5 ranks, I think that was the maximum it should have been. Because I mean, it was already grindy enough in some cases getting units to rank 5. And if I mean, this is at the end of the day, this is just a casual, crappy Farmville ripoff that was supposed to go on the iPhone and stay there. And when they added up to rank 6, it was pretty much a huge indicator that at this point Z2 didn't really know which direction to take the game. Because by adding an exponentially higher rank, or by adding another rank which required an exponentially higher amount of XP to get to, it kind of alienates the casual player base pretty much. I mean, to be honest, the casual player base wouldn't really try to get that far, but it's just an indicator because it shows that Z2 was trying to attract the more hardcore audience, which is off playing other games and not some crappy iPhone game. And by making decisions similar to that, kind of like what they did with the Ancient Sentinel, where you need the toppest of the top tier units to be able to kill it in order to unlock even more top tier units. It basically shows that you're only really trying to impress whatever loyal player base you had at that time. And keep in mind that that was in during their golden age, if you could call it that. Now on to their third stage, which is pretty much their pandering stage, which is 3.0. Because since the beginning of Battle Nations, or at least as long as I've been on the forums, there have always been a few people that have been asking for naval units and for air units, and it never really made sense in the scope of this game. In terms of like I mean, look at chess for example. You got, I mean, they're all basically some kind of variation of infantry or, well, your kings aren't really infantry, but they're all like people. Whatever, you get the point. Now imagine trying to take chess and try to find a way to implement ships or I don't know, like dragons or something in the context of chess. I don't really know they'd have planes at that time, but you get the point. It wouldn't really make sense for a ship to be in chess, nor would it make sense for an aerial unit to be in chess, because at the end of the day, you're just moving units, or you're moving your pieces from tile to tile, and that's all it's really going to be. Now, in the context of Battle Nations, it's pretty much the same thing. There's not really anything you could do with the concept of naval units or air units that would really differentiate from what we already had, which was just tanks and infantry. At the end of the day, it was just going to be a retextured, basically just a different textured unit, pretty much. I mean, for naval units, on the other hand, I mean, it was like a different. I mean, naval units, of course, would only be in the ocean, and land units would only be on land. But you get the picture here. It's not really that different from what we already had, other than different textures, pretty much. However, Z2 and their infinite wisdom decided to, let's put naval and air units into the game. And then they did. And it didn't really change anything other than really adding different unit types, I suppose. But there's already about like 200, 300, 500 even units at that point. And adding another 50 isn't really going to make that much of a difference, other than to the people who really care about air and naval units that much. Not even to mention that they completely half-assed their implementation of air units. Because what you had were these units which were completely, like, impervious to whatever, like, basically impervious to most units, because, I mean, all they really did was they added just a bunch of crappy new AA attacks to already existing units, and they added a few crappy AA units that were pretty much only useful for targeting air units, and you'd only really see them in PvP during the first stages of it. So imagine you're a brand new player to the game. You just started right after the first boss strike ended, and you don't have any AA units because the first really dedicated anti-air unit, I mean the only dedicated anti-air unit you can unlock, comes with the vehicle factory. But you have this guy with an alternate account that's very low level that manages to have let's just say even like the crappy triplane, which was the first air unit they added. Now there's completely nothing you can do against it, not a single thing, and then so now you're just a new player, and then you said, oh, this game's unbalanced as hell. I'm just gonna uninstall this game and move on to Clash of Clans or whatever. Now imagine that happening over and over and over again. So not only did they pander, they completely screwed up their implementation of air units pretty much. And also in the process alienated a bunch of new players to the game. So now back to 3.0 being the whole pandering phase. They added this brand new concept called Boss Strike, and basically all you did was shoot at the exact same units over and over again until the points on your bar would rise, and eventually you'd get a prize, which would either be some crap or a brand new air unit or nanopods. And once again, this brand new feature only really affects their loyal player base, Because I know for a fact that nobody in their right mind who just decided to, you know what, this game is very popular on the App Store, I'm gonna download it. Oh, what's this whole boss strike thing? Oh, I have to play it for like 10 hours in a single day to be able to get anywhere. No new player would have the will or even actually the units to be able to do something like that. I mean, in the context of this game, I mean, this isn't a hardcore game or anything. At the end of the day, this is just an iPhone game. This isn't a super popular MMO game that everyone plays. It's just something to pass the time. You know, you're waiting for something to happen at work, or you're sitting on the toilet. The average person isn't gonna take the time out of their day so that they would raise the bar enough just to get a crappy new unit. Another one to add to the collection of the 200 or 300 or whatever amount of units they have in this game. And by implementing the boss strike, they were able to market a brand new. They were able to market brand new nanopod units, like the legendary mammoth or the legendary raptor. And then people, being the complete idiots that they were, they said, "Oh, you're doing legendary animals. Let's see, legendary sandworms." And then they did that, and they made tons of money, but not enough to actually keep the game afloat. And they just kept doing things over and over again to appease whatever players they had left, to be able to milk them for more and more money. And I made a video about this about like 1 or 2 years ago about when the legendary sandworm came out. And I said that you'd have to be a complete idiot to buy the unit. And people, being idiots, decided to dislike the video and say that it was a good unit. That wasn't the point of the video. The point was, I mean, it could have been the best unit in the whole game and it could have completely killed everything in one shot. That doesn't matter. The point is that if you're willing to buy their premium units over and over again, you're basically allowing this to happen. You're the one who's responsible for the death of this game. You're the one who made Z2 dependent on having to constantly sell premium units to be able to make profits. And you did this time and time and time again. And because Z2 was so compliant to whatever demands you had, you ended up changing a completely casual-friendly iPhone game into what's supposed to be a completely hardcore grind fest. And you completely changed the direction that Z2 was going to take it. I mean, at one point, they had this game on Steam. And the people on Steam, not being complete idiots, saw this as a piece of crap Farmville ripoff. And then eventually they took the game off Steam because it was so bad, and it was completely incompatible with an actual hardcore player base. And then they tried to release it with some crappy TF2 units to try and pander to the Steam community. And now what you get? Now you lose all this money that you put into the game because they'll be shutting off the servers. There's no offline mode. So now all that money that you put into virtual crappy units, it's now gone. You lost all the money you put into the units, the buildings, the whatever. All the money you put into the game is gone. You lost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I lost $5. So yeah. Now the thing that really brought like the coming end of this game to my attention anyway was when they brought back all of the limited time units that they had. I mean, at first they had what was it, just the plain sandworm, and that was just supposed to be a limited time unit. And I remember when that came out, I actually paid for that thing, as well as the saboteur. Actually, no, not the saboteur. I actually had the nanopods at the time for that. No, it was the regular ninja and the regular sandworm. Those two were initially limited time units. And I bought those because they were limited time units, and at the end of the day, I'm a collector. And at that time, I thought it would still be possible to be able to get all the premium units that they had. And it was fine at that time. But then they decided to bring them back. And at that point, it was so obvious that they were just trying to pander to whoever they had left to be able to milk them for as much money as they had left. And this is true for games, for people, for even countries. If you need to pander to be able to keep yourself afloat, you know you really have nothing left to bring to the table. And this brings us to the fourth and final phase, the 4.0 update series, whatever, 4.0 to 4.6, the downfall phase. This is when you have really nothing left to bring. You're just throwing whatever you can left to be able to try and salvage whatever little chance you have at actually trying to come back. And of course they didn't. They made a bunch of empty promises with like the whole guild store thing, and they tried to put in a bunch of new boss strike gimmick mechanics. They even tried to put another whole kind of grind fest in. It was like some sort of like guild thing with like arena or something like that. I don't even remember. I already stopped playing at that point. And they added the naval units, and they added an entirely new storyline just for the naval units. That had completely nothing to do with what was already going on. And they put the story on hold, and they fired a bunch of people. They even sold out to, what was it at first? It was Blizzard and then King, or the other way around. I don't know. At this point, everyone knew they were screwed. People started leaving, and it was all going downhill from then. So I'll try to be as concise as possible in giving the exact reason why Battle Nations failed. They had all this potential, but they lost their sense of direction, and instead they pandered to a very vocal minority who eventually left them in the end. Now, you tell me if that doesn't sound like everything else nowadays. So yeah, that's pretty much the reason why Battle Nations is dead, and I'm completely not surprised of how it ended up. And also Z2's a bunch of cucks.